Velra stood before the Council of Resonance, her crystalline vocal cords producing frequencies no other member of her species could match. The chamber fell silent as she delivered her thesis on the 17 lost dialects of the Outer Rim. Each syllable precisely calibrated, each pause mathematically perfect. Flawless, Elder Thassan declared, his silver skin shimmering with approval. You are the finest linguist the Keleth have produced in 3 generations. Pride swelled in Velra's chest. Among her people, where communication was elevated to religious significance, such praise meant everything. The Keleth believed that civilization itself rested on the foundation of perfect speech, that chaos emerged from imprecision, and harmony from linguistic mastery. She had spent her entire life honing this single skill. While others developed multiple talents, Velra had committed herself wholly to the art of words. She could speak 47 languages without accent, compose diplomatic treaties that satisfied all parties, and diffuse conflicts through carefully chosen phrases alone. Her voice was her identity, her purpose, her entire worth. The human delegation arrives tomorrow, Elder Thassan continued. We need you to serve as primary translator and cultural liaison. These humans have peculiar communication styles. We're told they're often imprecise, emotional, and prone to contradiction. Velra's inner eyelids flickered with disdain. She'd read the preliminary reports. Humans used metaphors when literal language sufficed, frequently failed to say what they meant, and seemed to communicate as much through facial contortions as through actual words. It was linguistic chaos. I will ensure perfect translation, she promised. Their imprecision will not corrupt our negotiations. That evening, she prepared in her meditation chamber, reviewing human grammatical structures and phonetic patterns. She memorized idioms, studied their written forms, and practiced their guttural sounds until her vocal cords ached. By dawn, she was ready to demonstrate why the Keleth approach to communication was superior. When the human shuttle descended the next morning, Velra stood at the landing platform in her ceremonial robes, her posture immaculate, her prepared greeting words polished to perfection. She would show these humans what true mastery of language looked like. She had no idea that within 3 weeks, everything she believed about communication and about herself would be shattered and rebuilt into something far more profound. The human who emerged from the shuttle was nothing like the diplomatic holographs. Ambassador Marcus Chen was shorter than expected, his suit slightly rumpled from the journey, and his first words to the assembled Keleth Council were, "Wow, it's good to finally be here. That trip was murder." Velra's vocal cords froze. Murder, was this a threat? She quickly cross-referenced the term and realized it was merely an expression of discomfort. But the imprecision horrified her. Why not simply say the journey was uncomfortable? Ambassador Chen, she said in perfect Earth Standard English. Welcome to Keleth Prime. I am Velra, your assigned translator and liaison. If you require rest after your difficult journey, quarters have been prepared. Marcus smiled a curious muscular contortion that pulled his lips upward. Thank you, Velra, but I'm too excited to rest. I've been dying to meet you all. Dying. Another death reference when he clearly meant eager. Velra made a note to compile a report on humanity's disturbing linguistic habits. The first week was a study in frustration. During diplomatic sessions, Marcus would pause mid-sentence, furrow his brow, and say things like, "How do I put this?" or "I'm not sure I'm expressing this right." Such admissions of inadequacy would have been shameful among the Keleth, yet the other human delegates seemed to find it endearing. Worse, he constantly asked about her feelings. How do you feel about that proposal? What's your gut telling you? Does this sit right with you? Velra would provide logical analyses, and he would nod slowly, his eyes searching hers as if her words were somehow insufficient. By the breaking point came during a negotiation over mining rights. The Keleth representative delivered a perfectly structured argument spanning 12 minutes, covering all legal precedents and logical frameworks. Marcus listened, then leaned forward and said simply, "I hear you, but here's the thing, this feels wrong. Can we talk about why?" The Keleth representative's skin flushed purple with indignation. Feelings had no place in diplomatic discourse. That evening, Velra confronted Marcus in the garden terrace. Your imprecision is undermining these negotiations. Feels wrong is not a valid diplomatic position. Marcus turned from the railing, his expression soft. Velra, may I ask you something? When you speak, do you ever feel like your words aren't capturing what you really mean? No, she said immediately. Words are precise instruments. If they fail, it is because the speaker has chosen poorly. He studied her face for a long moment. I think you're lying, he said gently. Not to me, to yourself. The discovery came 3 days later, during a routine archaeological survey of Keleth's northern continent. A research team uncovered a sealed vault containing data crystals inscribed with symbols neither Keleth nor human databases could identify. The symbols appeared ancient, predating both civilizations. By millennium, their arrangement suggested they contained warnings or instructions of critical importance. More troubling, similar vaults had been discovered simultaneously on 3 other inhabited worlds, including one in human space. Whatever these messages contained, they were clearly meant for multiple species. The Council of Resonance summoned Velra and Marcus. You two must work together to decode these symbols. Elder Thassan declared, time is critical. Our astrophysicists believe these messages may relate to the gravitational anomalies detected in the disputed sector. That sector sat between Kelith and human spacer region, both species claimed, where tensions had been building for years. If war came, it would start there. Velra and Marcus were given a private research chamber filled with holographic displays of the symbols. For hours, they worked in parallel, Velra applying linguistic analysis while Marcus did whatever humans did when thinking, which seemed to involve pacing, muttering, and scribbling on actual paper. These aren't just symbols, Velra announced after 6 hours. They're Each glyph contains phonetic components, mathematical ratios, and what appear to be chromatic values. It's a communication system that transcends single-dimensional language. They're beautiful, Marcus said, staring at the symbols with wonder. Look at this curve here, it's like it's reaching, yearning. And this sharp angle feels urgent, almost frightened. Velra's inner eyelids flickered. Symbols cannot feel. They convey information through structure. Do they? Marcus walked closer to the largest glyph. What if the builders knew that pure information isn't enough? What if they encoded emotion into the structure deliberately? It was an absurd suggestion. Yet as Velra looked at the symbols through this new lens, she noticed something. The arrangement wasn't just logically, it had rhythm, flow. The spacing between glyphs created a kind of breathing. Impossible, she whispered. Marcus turned to her, and for the first time, she really looked at his face. His eyes were warm, encouraging, completely unguarded. Velra, I need to show you something. Will you trust me? She wanted to refuse. Trust wasn't relevant to linguistic analysis. But something in his voice, or perhaps in the space around his voice, made her nod. He held out his hand. Tomorrow morning, meet me at sunrise. No recording devices, no analytical tools, just you. Velra arrived at the observation plateau as the first sun breached the horizon. Marcus was already there, sitting cross-legged on the stone, eyes closed. He didn't speak when she approached, merely patted the ground beside him. She sat, her posture rigid. What is this? He raised one finger gently to his lips. Wait, he mouthed. They sat in silence as the sunrise unfolded. The sky shifted through 17 shades of amber and rose. Wind carried the scent of Kelith flowers from the valley below. Somewhere, a bird analog sang its morning territorial claim. Velra's mind raced with questions, analyzes objections, but Marcus's stillness was contagious. Gradually, her thoughts quieted. After 20 minutes, Marcus spoke softly. What do you feel? I don't. She stopped. Something had shifted in her chest. A kind of expansion, warmth, peace, she said finally. Wonder, can you describe the sunrise using only words? She considered. The primary star's photons, scattered through atmospheric particles, creating wavelengths perceived as amber and rose. No. His voice was kind but firm. I didn't ask for an explanation. I asked for a description. Could your words give me the feeling of this moment? Velra opened her mouth and closed it. Nothing, she said, could capture the totality of this experience. The way the light made her skin tingle, the ache of beauty in her chest, the sudden awareness of her own insignificance and simultaneous importance. No, she admitted. Marcus smiled. That's the first honest thing you've said to me. The words stung, but he was right. She'd been hiding behind precision, using perfect grammar as armor against uncertainty. The Ancient Ones, Marcus continued, I think they understood something we've forgotten. Communication isn't about transmitting data. It's about creating shared experience, connection. But how do we decode their message if words are insufficient? We stopped trying to decode it. He stood, offering his hand. We try to feel it. Over the next week, Marcus taught her his approach. They studied the symbols not as linguists but as archaeologists of emotion. They noticed how certain glyphs made them feel uneasy, others hopeful. They paid attention to their body's responses: tension, relaxation, curiosity, dread. And slowly, a pattern emerged. Not a logical sequence, but an emotional journey. Fear, warning, urgency, then hope, unity, survival. It's a plea, Velra realized during their 9th session. They're not giving instructions. They're asking for something. Marcus nodded slowly. Look at this symbol. Hear the way it's reaching toward the others. They're asking species to come together. But why? Velra manipulated the hologram. What threat could require? The symbol array suddenly shifted, responding to her touch. A new layer appeared, astronomical coordinates, timeframes, and a single image. A star-going supernova. The disputed sector. 3 months from now. The revelations sent shockwaves through both governments. The ancient message wasn't about claiming territory, it was a warning. The disputed sector's star was unstable, and its explosion would create a radiation wave that would devastate both Kelith and human colonies, unless they worked together to evacuate. But decades of mistrust couldn't dissolve overnight. The emergency council sessions devolved into accusations and territorial posturing. Each side demanded guarantees, concessions, and formal protocols before committing to joint action. Velra sat through the 3rd session. listening to her own people and the humans speak past each other. Both sides used perfect diplomatic language. Both sides were technically correct in their arguments. And both sides were going to let millions die because they couldn't connect. She stood abruptly, her voice cutting through the chamber. Stop. Elder Thawson's skin flashed with shock. Interrupting council proceedings was unthinkable. I apologize for my imprecision, Velra continued, her voice shaking. I apologize for my emotion. I apologize for not having a perfectly structured argument prepared. But I need to tell you all something, and I'm going to use inadequate words because they're all I have. She looked at Marcus, drawing strength from his encouraging nod. I spent my entire life believing that perfect speech was the highest form of communication, that mastery of language meant mastery of understanding. I was wrong. The admission felt like shedding armor. These past weeks, a human showed me that communication isn't about perfect words, it's about courage to be vulnerable. It's about trusting others to understand what we mean even when we can't articulate it perfectly. She turned to the Kelith delegation. We pride ourselves on precision, but we've become so afraid of saying the wrong thing that we've stopped saying anything true. We hide behind formal language because it's safe. Then, to the humans, and you're so committed to your emotional authenticity that you sometimes forget others need structure to feel secure. Velra walked to the holographic display, bringing up the ancient symbol that had started everything, the glyph that felt like reaching. The ancients left this message across multiple worlds because they knew what we've forgotten: we're stronger together. Not because our languages align perfectly, not because we always understand each other, but because we're willing to try to reach across the gap even when we don't have perfect words. She looked at Marcus, her voice softening. Someone taught me that the deepest communication happens in the spaces between words, in trust, in shared silence, in choosing to believe in each other even when it's difficult. The chamber was quiet. Then Marcus stood, crossing to the Kelith side of the room, a symbolic gesture. I propose we stop negotiating and start listening, not to each other's positions, but to each other's fears. Because I think we're all afraid of the same thing, not being understood. Elder Thawson's skin rippled with uncertainty. Then, slowly, he spoke, not in formal council language, but simply, I am afraid we will fail our people, that our caution will become cowardice. A human admiral cleared her throat. I'm afraid of trusting you and being betrayed. One by one, voices filled the chamber. Admissions of fear, hope, doubt, imperfect, vulnerable, true. The evacuation plan came together in 6 hours, not because anyone found perfect words, but because they stopped hiding behind them. 3 months later, Velra stood on a colony ship, watching the disputed sector's star collapse into supernova. Beside her, Marcus was silent, but his hand found hers, and the gesture said everything words couldn't. Thank you, she said finally, for showing me that my words were never my only strength, that I was always more than my voice. Marcus squeezed her hand. You showed yourself, Velra. I just gave you permission to look. She smiled, understanding now that her true purpose wasn't to speak perfectly, it was to connect authentically, to bridge not just languages, but hearts. The star bloomed into brilliant destruction, beautiful and terrible, and in the silence they shared, Velra felt more understood than she ever had in a lifetime of perfect words.